Here's the show you've been waiting for, 7 Minutes. I'm Chris Wright. My co-host is Beverly Swimm. Every week we'll be interviewing successful business people, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, social influencers, and just people who you like on Facebook, but you haven't got a chance to meet them. So you're going to learn a little bit about themselves, what they're doing in their own words. And let me warn you, the shows aren't necessarily 7 minutes, but I called it that because 7 is a very special number in my life. And the number 7 is very important spiritually to a lot of people. But they won't be that long, but you're going to get some great nuggets in all of these videos that's going to help you on your own journey to success. Thank you for watching. Our next guest on 7 Minutes is Jeff Buell, principal of Redburn Development. Jeff's going to give us a surprise, but he's also going to tell us about how he got into the business, what his passion is, and he's going to talk about philanthropy. Please welcome Jeff Buell. Thank you for watching.
We'd like to introduce Jeff Buell, principal at Redburn Development. And prior to his entrepreneurship, first with his own company, Sequence Development, and then at Redburn, Jeff spearheaded economic development efforts for the city of Troy, where he spent years gaining experience in development from the municipality perspective. Redburn, as seen in their mission statement, is dedicated to socially responsible development, historic preservation, green energy and environmental sustainability, and community partnership. And to look at all the projects your team has completed over the years, you are definitely living up to your mission.
Thanks.
Jeff is the recipient of Entrepreneur of the Year 2016 from the Chamber of Commerce. And fast forward 5 years, he is now the chairman of the board of the Chamber. He also sits on the board of the University of Albany Center for Leadership and is the chairman of the board of Troy Prep, a charter school. He is the founder of a philanthropic kindness project called Do the Next Good Thing, and has actually received national recognition for that. You can follow Jeff and Redburn on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So why don't you share with us what you've got going on?
Oh, we're, from the work side of things, we are very, very busy. I wish there was a better way to say that. Very active, I guess is a more appropriate way of saying it. Things are in the area that we work in, which is predominantly our region cities. There's growth happening there, and it's mostly a byproduct of disinvestment for decades, but we've seen no slowdown in what we do over the past 6 or 7 years. In fact, it just continues to heat up. So right now, the big project we're working on that's under construction, we bought the old Huck Finn building, and then we renamed it Slip 12. So I'm going to try to call it Slip 12 while I'm talking about it here. That project is what we just finished up. The first phase, and like this week finished up, and that has 70 apartments in it, and 65 of them are already leased. So really incredible growth happening in our cities, which is great. And then, a year from now, I hope to be sitting here, under construction on the central warehouse, which everybody knows about, that monstrosity that's been sitting vacant for 40 years. And we are going to buy it and do something with it. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think we're up for it.
Give us any insight?
Sure. It's a pretty staggering structure when you walk into it. It's over 500,000 square feet. Every floor is an acre of land. And you've driven by it, but I know very few people that have actually spent time in it. And it's pretty spectacular inside. You wouldn't think of it given its nondescript existence on the exterior. But the interior is awesome. Mushroom concrete columns, decent floor to ceiling heights on the upper floors. The lower floors are gorgeous. Walks out onto, an old railroad bridge that was built, around the Civil War. It's just, it's a pretty dynamic structure. And, we think that when we're done with it, we will have sort of flipped the script on what's possible in the region. We have a 6th grade self-esteem problem. I say this all the time. I stole it from my friend Maureen, who said it to me first, and now I've co-opted it because I believe in it fully. And, this building sitting just off of 787 has 100,000 cars pass by it every day, times 365 days a year, times 40 years. You got like 100 and I don't know, I'm not going to do the math because I'll get it wrong and then people will make fun of me. Let's say 12 million cars have passed by it. And every day they're like, oh, look at that. So if we can fix it, if we can make it something that people want to be in, then we've flipped the narrative on what's possible in Albany.
So you do projects in Troy and Albany, like all over the capital region in these cities. And when I talk to other developers, the biggest problem they seem to have are the politicians. Do you run into these things? Have you created great connections? How do you seem to overcome these hurdles?
I have no issue with the politics in any of the cities. And I think I worked in it, so I understand it. I did my 7-year duty in city government, which is like 70 years of like a real life cycle. So, I have a lifetime of experience there and I love politics. And I think that invariably, if you look at the major leaders of the cities, they all have the same goal in mind. They just want what's best for their city. I think that folks who work on our side of the business oftentimes are closed-minded to the possibilities that exist. And so we go about things differently. I'm not saying that it's easy, but there are programs in place in New York State to allow people like me to invest and be successful.
Okay.
Understandable. Politics in your future?
No. Too many skeletons in my closet. Everybody knows everything about everybody, and I don't even want to open up those doors. No, my parents are still living.
Yeah, I don't want to give them any heart attacks.
No.
That is why I actually brought up your work in Troy.
Yeah.
I know it launched you so brilliantly that you're able to navigate the nightmare that it is these different municipalities and how to get things done. So, and I see that your projects all over the Capital District they're just astonishing. And I love the things that you've done in Schenectady, taking these properties and turn them into something beautiful where people want to live.
Schenectady is fun. It started just with one building, and it was on a Facebook memory today that we bought. I think it was 7 years ago we bought the building. It was the first building that we bought in Schenectady, and now we own the whole block, which is really fun. And it's I think we have 120 apartments on that block, 3 restaurants, 60,000 square feet of medical office space. It's nice little one at a time chugging along development that is, I think it plays a big part in the revitalization of Schenectady. Schenectady is so far from where it was 20 years ago. It's unbelievable. And it's a blueprint for what can be done when you have people aligned and willing to be on the same page.
Yeah, I love your insight. Actually, I was on your website earlier today and saw that I think you have 5 total apartments available for rent.
In Schenectady?
I think,
or in anywhere. I mean,
anywhere probably.
Yeah, I mean, we economically, our economic occupancy, which is a byproduct of what's rented and then who's paying rent. Our economic occupancy is pretty consistently over 95%, and our physical occupancy, if you look at it over the course of a year, is we're between 97 and 98%. There's very rarely apartments available.
Do you have any tips for people who want to just get their first property to flip, like something you would give that a piece of advice?
I tell this story all the time and people find it unbelievable, but it's true. I started this company 9 years ago, so it'll be 10 years in March, and I had $7,500 in the bank. And that was it. I didn't grow up in this. I don't come from money. I decided to take it and go with it. And, part of that is like pure ego and believing that you can't fail, right? So you have to have that. If you think you're going to fail, you'll fail. So for me, it's the biggest thing is like just believing you won't fail. And then I've been incredibly blessed. I prefer to use the word privileged, to have relationships in my life where people believed in me at times maybe they shouldn't, and they went with me and invested in things that I poke fun at myself all the time, and I encourage people on our staff who are aligned like me. We have different silos in our company, but the ones that think like me, I consistently tell them, look, less on facts and more on emotion. You have to sell people on what you want to do and the why behind what you want to do more than the numbers most of the time. The numbers are the numbers. They're in an Excel spreadsheet. We know what an apartment costs to build, and we know what it will rent for. And we know the cost of debt, and we know the cost of equity. These are variables that we understand. The rest of it is, how are you telling your story, and what is your why? And if you don't have a good why, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you sound like a learned man. Like, now, is all this street education, or is this scholar? Like, did you go to college for all this? Where'd you
I
learn
don't know
all
if it's street education, or I'll say this, Chris. I read a lot. I read vociferously. You know, I still physically read newspapers every day. And so I love to learn that way. But, you know, I never took a business class. I tell people that all the time. I studied journalism when I was in college. And yeah, I think I just read a lot. And then intuitively, you know, about 20 years ago, when Troy really started to kind of boom a little bit, and you started to see a bit of the renaissance that I was working for the city at the time, you could see if you just did these small things that that people like, and the like is like, really, I mean, small things: walkability, connectivity, street front retail. We've lived in cities for a couple of millennia now, right? Like, the suburbs are the experiment. And we grew up, you know, you grow up in this area, if you're between the age of like 25 and 65, and you didn't really think about that or learn about it, you wouldn't know that the suburbs are the, you know, they're the experiment. And so the cities are not. And so I, you know, again, a little arrogantly just thought, well, if we just build in cities, people will come. Turns out we were right. If you build in the city and you build in a good location and have a good price, people will live there.
Interesting.
That's great. So love your LinkedIn about section. It says, what are we doing to change the world? Literally one sentence in that. I absolutely love that. So what are you doing to keep your team inspired with that kind of perspective?
Well, so the team is interesting because there's three principals. I'm one of them. The other two are engineers who are beyond brilliant, and, you know, very, very book smart, and understand how to execute a dream that is placed in front of them. And so we are a very well-built group. And I guess if I was going to go back to your other question about advice I would give to somebody, the actual good advice is make sure you're an executor. I have met a lot of people over the past 10 years. I've invested in a lot of dreams, and the ones that really make it are the ones who can execute. And the ones that don't and end up breaking my heart are oftentimes like me. They're not executors. I can barely like execute making my bed in the morning. But I've been lucky enough to surround myself with people who can. And so we have a team that appreciates that we are attempting to do the impossible in this region. And so we're buying buildings like the Central Warehouse, which, you know, I bet if you took a poll in the region, 95% of the people would say knock it down. That's not the right answer. You're actually wrong if you think that, and that's fine. But so I think we have a team that likes the challenge of what we try to do in a day-to-day. It's never boring. It's a very intense workplace. It's not easy to work there. But if it's one of those things, if you can make it there, you're going to be able to make it anywhere.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree with you about the warehouse. Was in a meeting with a bunch of commercial real estate professionals, and Kathy Sheehan, and she says that it's only going to take us a couple of $100,000 to knock down that building. It's going to take multiple millions to get it hauled away.
Yeah.
So
it's a heavy building. It weighs like 200 million pounds. And I didn't make that number up. We did a calculation based on the concrete thickness of walls and floors, how tall it is, and they're 200 million pounds.
Right. So you are absolutely right. Tearing it down was not the right thing to do. So glad that you are on the job. Go ahead, Chris.
So, you know what? One of my future guests that's coming on in a few weeks, we were talking about her success and business, and she looked at me. She said, "Chris, I don't do this for money. I just happen to. The money is a byproduct." You kind of feel the same way because you're a philanthropist and you've done so much for the community and you do things out of charity and kindness. Tell me about that. Like, when you don't do it for the money, how do you get to that byproduct?
Well, I think the money has to be a byproduct for me. If the money was the first thing, I would lose my mind. I don't subscribe to, so the money is not the root of all evil, right? It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And so money has a place in society. Our projects need to make money to make sense. We have investors we need to pay back. And I like to go out to eat a lot. So you need to make money, but it can't be your passion, right? If money is the idol, then the moment it gets stripped away, you'll collapse. If you are doing things for, a reason beyond that, then you will have built yourself, you'll have built yourself a foundation on which you can withstand the stuff that maybe you didn't think you could. It sounds easy enough to say I don't do it for the money, but I think for me, I've said it and done it and worn it on my sleeve enough that I think most people that know me believe it at this point. The philanthropy is, I don't know. I don't have any kids. I'm not married. I'm just going to give everything away before I die anyway. So whatever, just see what happens.
There's still time, Jeff.
No, I know.
Hey, a couple of follow-up questions. Since you read so much, do you have any recommendations on which books to read? And then secondly, since you like to go out to eat a lot, how about some restaurant tips?
Okay, so on the books, the thing that I really think is required reading, but it's long, is Hamilton's biography by Ron Chernow, which is the basis for Hamilton, the Broadway musical.
That's a good book.
What's incredible about it is we as a society are stuck at this point where we feel like we can't get along. Everybody hates each other and everything is collapsing. And when you read Hamilton and the story of Hamilton, they were way worse than we are. And they never got along. And it's an inspiring story to look at what happened when a bunch of people who had nothing got together and went for it. So I think if you're feeling down, read that. You can grab the audiobook. It's a 74-hour audiobook listen. It's going to take you a very long time. But it's terrific. I also read the Bible every day, but that's either good or bad with who you are, but I do that every day. And then food. Okay. Let's go. What do you want to know? What city, what place, what kind of food are you looking for? I eat out 3 meals a day. So
Really?
Oh yeah.
I would say the ones that people may not know about.
So I'm gonna end up leaning heavily into my tenants here because I love them so much. But if you haven't been to the Nest in Schenectady, it is absolutely incredible. Yep. They crush it and are working with us on opening up their second restaurant, which will be called Mila, just down the street. But the Nest in Schenectady on State Street is terrific. If I'm hanging out in Troy, I don't know. I love the old places. I love Testo's. I love Verdile's, the old school places. And then Albany is just so all over the map. But okay, so if you've never had banh mi, which is a Vietnamese sub, in the Kenmore building in downtown Albany on North Pearl Street, 74 North Pearl Street, we have a restaurant in one of our buildings called Banh Mi 74. Last time I checked, they had 85 5-star Yelp reviews and nothing was under 5 stars. And it's absolutely delicious. So I would say banh mi. And then if you're a vegan, which is a growing segment of the world, we have a vegan burger restaurant in the Kenmore called Wizard Burger, which I got to tell you, one, you can't tell it's not real meat. And then two, if you eat it, you'll be in a food coma for 30 minutes. You'll literally be sit there like, I'm so tired, but it's delicious. Yeah, it's amazing.
So I'm going to ask every guest this: what's next for Redburn or Jeff Buell?
I'm actually personally very interested in seeing what happens about how I feel once we're done the central warehouse. So it's probably going to take 2 years to do it. We have a couple small projects in between that we're going to do. Here's breaking news. No one knows this publicly. We're buying Catholic High in Troy. So there you go. You got your exclusive.
Here we go.
Yeah. So we're going to buy Catholic High in Troy. That'll be a nice little project for us. But I'm, in my head, and I've said this a couple of times in my life over the past 5 or 6 years, I need a break. I'm very interested in seeing how I feel post central warehouse, when that gets going, you know, that's going to be $100 million investment. It's not insignificant by any stretch of the imagination. And you're not supposed to fall in love with real estate, but I already love the building. And so fixing it and getting it to where it needs to be is going to take a lot out of me. And I don't know where I'm going to be, but I will never be boring. I can tell you that.
Well, I would say we can end on that note. And thank you so much, Jeff. And we'll be keeping our eye on you.
On you and on your projects. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. You guys have been great. I can't wait to see how you edit it down to 7 minutes, though.
It won't be, but that's the idea of the show, to get it as close as possible.
Just call it, you can call it 7 minutes or so.
Or so, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, cool. It's been great, guys. Appreciate it.
I'll let you know. It's going to be this. Yours might be first, actually, on Thursday.
Okay. I'll be around. Thanks.
If not, this next one. All right.
Have a great holiday season, guys.
Bye, Jeff. Great to see you.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.